It is the Doomsday podcast live from our studios high at AT&T Stadium. I'm Matt Mosley, Ed Werder with me as always. We've been doing this now for going on like 8 years or something. Kind of unbelievable. Thanks to Rogue Media Network and our man Zach Burke and Cowboys. I mean, just like we predicted, Ed, 44-22. They come out and dominate the Washington Commanders. They knocked the great Jaden Daniels out of the game. Defense plays extremely well, and the Cowboys now 3-3-1. And Ed, in a week where the head coach had to try to defend the defensive coordinator and say, that's my guy, and I've been through it. I've been where he is. I've been where everybody, which is kind of funny to hear from Schottenheimer, because Schottenheimer, of course, the offense is playing really well. So Schottenheimer's feeling okay. But as a head coach, he's losing ball games today for once. And who knows if it's sustainable. But and that's one of the things I asked Jerry about after the game, Ed, is like, why did, if this man-to-man coverage works so well, don't you wish you had tried it a little before now? And they did it today, and there was a huge pick six, lots of good things that happened. But Ed, big bounce back game for the Cowboys after an embarrassing loss in Carolina last weekend.
Yeah, and for the second time in 3 weeks, Jerry Jones, as he was finishing with the media outside the locker room, walked the corridor down to the elevator to take him back up to his owner's suite. We were able to stop him for a few extra minutes, got some detail on the Trayvon Diggs concussion at home situation and how that's going to affect them going forward. We'll get to that on the other side of the music. But yeah, Jerry talked about for the second time in 3 weeks, how impressed he was with Brian Schottenheimer as a first-time head coach. In this instance, he was praising him for his ability to put aside the offensive game plan and embrace his responsibility for coaching the entire team and working with Matt Eberflus, the defensive coordinator, to try to find some solutions to the way they were playing on defense, which was they were the 32nd ranked defense in the entire NFL. They ranked first in the NFL in offense, so the dichotomy was striking, and the defense was threatening to, overrun and undermine Dak Prescott's brilliance at quarterback. He's playing maybe the best stretch of football in his entire career. So Jerry was giving Schottenheimer a lot of praise for that. Like you said, we'll see if it's sustainable because, 3 weeks ago, they thought they took a step forward with the way they shut down the Jets. But then we quickly saw that was really just the Jets were really just a bad offensive team. And Washington today was playing, without its top three receivers. But I do give them credit for this was an opportunity to take advantage of an opponent that was decimated by injury at the wide receiver position, and they did exactly that. And you talk about the changes on defense. They use man covers a season-high 59% of the time today. And they had been running zone at the highest rates in the NFL, 82% zone coverage. And I had this note that Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs, both of whom under Dan Quinn led the NFL in interceptions in separate seasons, and Bland set the NFL pick six record. And they were largely playing man-to-man coverage, and they worked under Matt Eberflus to the point that they went into this game today, those two players and Diggs didn't play, they had not touched the ball in terms of an interception or a pass defense in over 500 combined snaps on defense for those two players. So today was a big moment when Deron Bland basically puts the game out of reach with his first pick six of the season, their first defensive touchdown of the season. They've only got 6 takeaways, but the Cowboys have scored after every one of them. They scored a field goal after the first one, and they scored a touchdown on all of the rest. So they've been opportunistic. Today was their best example yet of them playing complementary football, and they scored 40 points in all 3 of their home games. The other 2 required overtime for them to do it. This one, they didn't even have to get through 3 quarters before they were over the 40-point mark.
No, and the TV cameras caught Eberflus, and his job has come into question, and we've been that horrible. And so it was a good response from the Cowboys today. Now, we got a lot more to share with you. I would like to ask the Z-Man, Zach Burke, please, sir, play the music. 42-22 Cowboys victory.
44-22. Double their score. Can you believe that?
44-22. Yes,
Yeah.
that is what happened. And
I'm going to very carefully edit you from this point.
You watch whatever I say. I understand that. And but a big win for the Cowboys. And it's just like, Ed, 1 week you come away, and I guess we'll have to learn just to put up with this from this. The good thing about this division is this is the division to do this in, right? Nobody seems like they're going to run away with anything. Even the Eagles, when they seemingly had a chance to pull away from the Vikings today, did not. Giants had a great chance to beat the Broncos. They did not. And obviously the Cowboys took care of Washington. So the key thing to do is beat your division opponents. And the Cowboys are now 2-1 against their divisional opponents. And this was a big win for a lot of reasons. And Ed, the good thing is, we said it last week. We said the only way this team has a chance to win is to score basically like 35 points a game. They did that. Okay, we've come to expect that.
They've scored 40 or more points in their first 3 home games in a season for the first time since 1973. I think Roger Staubach, who was here today, had been the quarterback on that team. It was Legends homecoming weekend or whatever. So a lot of the great players in franchise history were here. And Dak talked about standing there on the field next to Roger for the national anthem and just how motivational that moment was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're right about the division. Win the division is the best way to make the postseason. And I really think that for the first time all season that the Cowboys have achieved, they're in second place in the division for the first time, right? They're ahead of Washington now. When the season started, Philadelphia and Washington were 1 and 2 in this division because on the basis of going to the NFC Championship game last year, which the Cowboys haven't done in 30 years. And so they moved ahead now of Washington. And I think when the season started, maybe for the first time since Dak established himself as a starting quarterback, he was viewed as the third best quarterback in this division. And now I'm not sure he's not the best quarterback in this division. Jalen Hurts had his first 300-yard passing game of the year today in Minnesota against, that great defense that Brian Flores has. Jaden Daniels, the Cowboys, we talked about they didn't have the top of the receivers. Well, they created 2 turnovers, and the first of them involved knocking Jaden Daniels out of the game. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how fortuitous is that for the defense to get a turnover that the offense cashes in, you knock the starting quarterback out of the game, and then you get a pick 6 on the first series by the backup Marcus Mariota. I mean, that's complimentary football, and that's what the Cowboys demonstrated, I think, today.
Yeah, and we started off talking about Eberflus and just how clueless the defense looked. And to see, and Jerry, and some of the stuff he said this week just seemed preposterous. Hey, we used to make some tweaks here and there. The question continues to be asked. It was asked after this game, does this give you more impetus now to make a trade, to go help this team? Because they're responding now. I mean, in one game they did. And Jerry was basically like, not maybe, yes and no, right? This doesn't, I think Jerry's whole thing was, this defense isn't as bad as y'all think it is, and we can just tweak it, and it'll be better. And for one day, that was the case. Now, we should say, like we have to say, like when they beat the Jets, who are dreadful and may not win a game this entire season, the Commanders were without all their top receivers, all their top pass catchers.
Terry McLaurin,
Debo Samuel. Yeah, they were all out. And so they had somebody named Robbie Chosen out there who used to be Robbie Anderson, and it used to be R-O-B-B-Y, and now it's R-O-B-B-I-E. And I spent the first quarter trying to figure out, I'm like, that guy looks familiar. Robbie Chosen. He was starting his life over, and it's a faith thing, and he decided to call himself Chosen, which Ed, that'd sound good on you. Ed Chosen. I'd like to see you do that.
I felt chosen.
But they didn't really, and I wouldn't say Jaden Daniels had one of his better games. He ran around and did some things, but the Cowboys defense, when a team is compromised, Ed, we've seen teams who are compromised that still come out and put it on the Cowboys. They beat a team that hung about 450 passing yards on them. And that was not, the Giants did not have their top wide receiver in that game, did they? Was it one?
No, he was still
Did he play? Okay, he's been out lately. But Wan'Dale Robinson was doing a lot of the damage, as I recall. But the Cowboys, they were so much better. And again, it just led me to ask that question of like, why did you wait? Like, what was so important about sticking with that zone defense? And wasn't it interesting, Ed? They make the move, they play more men, they blitz more. They were blitzing, according to Fox, it was like a third of the time in the first half.
Well, when you're part of a lead, it's easier to play that way too. I mean, that's what they did with Dan Quinn, right? They played man. They created pressure on the passer because the opponent's playing from behind. The opponent knows you got to score 40 points to win the game. It gets to be difficult. So the Cowboys took the running game away by scoring at will early in this game. They had, 30, 20 points at the half? They had 20 at the half. They crossed a 40 mark in the third quarter. And so now Washington, which is already has a limited passing game because of the injuries at wide receiver, now they've lost their quarterback. And because of the score, they can't really run the football anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So you made them one-dimensional. You can use your offense to make the opposing offense one-dimensional if you can score consistently.
Yes, and what the Cowboys did at the end of the first half, and they did it at the end of the game in regulation against the Giants. They've done it throughout much of the season. They can score in a hurry. And Ed, I thought when the Giants made a major mistake at the end of the first half by scoring too quickly. Like they got down. I mean, and sometimes you go, well, you got to get in. You got to get in.
Sorry about the Commanders.
Yeah, sorry, the Commanders. Yes,
and then the Cowboys go down and score
immediately.
You know what?
Pickens had a huge play on that drive.
And Javonte Williams had a 33-yard run right after that. And it was interesting in that moment, and that's kind of where I started with my conversation with Jerry as we were walking to the elevator was, Brian Schottenheimer, when he took over this team in the offseason and became the play caller for the first time for Dak, he talked about we need to create more explosive plays. That's how you score in this league. Explosive plays. So the Cowboys came into this game leading the NFL in plays of 25 or more yards. They had 20. That was 4 more than anybody else. And on that drive we're talking about that was so pivotal at the end of the half, they had 2 more. They had the Pickens play down the sideline, and they had the Javonte Williams run right before
33-yard run.
Yeah. And then, of course, they had the 74-yard touchdown to CeeDee Lamb. That was another one of those explosive plays. So they get 3-4 explosive plays every game out of this offense. And it's not unusual for them to score against Washington. This is the 4th time the Commanders have allowed 40 or more points in a game in the last 3 seasons. That's the 3rd most in the NFL. Only the Panthers with 6 and the Cowboys with 5 have allowed 40 or more points more times. But 2 of the games that Washington's allowed that, 2 of the 4 have been against the Cowboys. And Dak Prescott, he's the only quarterback since 1933 to throw for 20 touchdowns without an interception at home against any single opponent as he's done against Washington. It's the most passing touchdowns at home without an interception in any matchup. The previous record was Tom Brady with 18 touchdowns and no interceptions against the Steelers. That's the level at which Dak Prescott not only plays against Washington, but really that's how he plays at home against the division. He averages 33 points a game at home against division opponents. And he exceeded that today with the help of the defense. The defense
did his part for once.
Scored and set them up for another score.
And I thought, a great offensive game plan was to just go at Marshawn Lattimore. He had no shot. He was number 2 out there today. And they went at him over and over. And even on that 74-yard play, it took a little bit of luck because Lattimore bumped into the safety, number 20. Yeah, and he went to the ground, and then CD just took off. And to have those 2, I mean, I think Pickens was kind of funny this week when he was asked about his extension. He's like, I wouldn't have any problem staying here. He didn't come across like he's dying to be here or whatever, but that's okay. I mean, he may be a little bit of a mercurial type guy, but in terms of as a player right now, I thought that was a great opportunity for him with CD out, because I think there was some thought like, is this guy just going to be a really good number 2? He played absolutely like a number 1. And then today with CD coming back, it's not like he shrank or, he didn't go away. He stepped up, and they both put up big numbers. And then Ferguson continues to be the touchdown maker. And he's on
6 touchdowns. He went 22 straight games without a touchdown. He had no touchdowns last year for the first time in his career. But today was a funny little anecdote that Dak shared, and we saw this on social media, that when Dak arrived, it happened to be at the same time Ferguson arrived, and Ferguson had told Dak that he bought a Houghton high school jersey from Louisiana. That's the high school Dak played at.
Yeah.
And he bought one with Dak's number, which I think was 6. And he wore it today. And Dak told him, you're getting the ball today in the red zone for sure. And so there might be a number of players next week in Denver when they go to Denver wearing high school jerseys. Just
it's either
trying to get some favor.
Houghton or Halton.
Yeah.
But it's Haughton maybe.
Yeah.
And it's 30 miles outside of Shreveport. And Dak, as I recall, grew up a huge University of Texas fan, actually, not an LSU fan, as you might guess, and did not get recruited by the University of Texas, but went to Mississippi State, and they lost to Florida, but Florida still fired its coach last night. Again, 44-22 win for the Cowboys. Marcus Mariota, as Ed said, had to come into the game, and Jaden Daniels went out with a hamstring injury, and Mariota was frantically trying to get the team back in it, and then that's what led to just completely breaking open the game and getting it to 41-15 on the pick 6, and that brought back memories. Ed, you'll remember 2023, Deron Bland set NFL record
5
for pick sixes. Yeah,
he's got 6 in his career. That's the most in franchise history. It's 4 more than anybody else since he came into the league.
Yeah,
pretty remarkable stat. And although he did say that the pick 6 today, as much as they played more man and he's a man corner, he played the slot today primarily. They were in his zone coverage when he made that interception today, just for the record.
Yeah, and Mariota threw it. It was he was going.
It was pressure. He was trying to move around in the pocket.
He threw it out there, and then Deron did what you have to do, and he took that ball to the house. And this place, which honestly, sometimes other teams come in and their fans and take this place over. It's happened. It's happened a time or two this season. And I thought the crowd was rewarded early. I don't know if it's the greatest crowd I've seen in here. It was a late arriving crowd, I should say that. But early on, the Commanders had a false start, and it seemed like the crowd helped cause it. And I think the crowd was emboldened by that. And so Cowboys win this thing. I don't know where the trust level is on this team right now. I think at least we know they're good enough not to tank. This is not going to be a tank. I think after last week, it was so bad, the defense was so bad, you're like, okay, could this end up being like a 5 or 6 win team? And now we're back to thinking this could be, 500 team? It's hard to say. I mean, you can't go 500. Well, kind of. You could, because they could go 8-1.
Right.
Yeah.
They're one of the few teams that could.
It
could go. It's a mathematical possibility for them.
It has that possibility. Now, Ed, we will talk, because Ed and I spent some time with Jerry, and separately we sort of questioned him on the same topic. It was a point, Ed, where you and I were jockeying for position behind Jerry, and I was kind of like, buddy, we got the same. We're all doing
our phones
were like, yeah.
But then when we followed him down to the elevator and I started asking him about Diggs before he got on, I didn't realize you were the person next to me.
Yeah. And he also, but when you stepped away briefly, when I got into it with him on Diggs and really started pressing in on what exactly happened, he ended it by saying, "Do you have enough, Judge?" He called me.
Well,
he called me Judge.
The interesting things about the Diggs situation is that all this time later, the Cowboys have still not explained it in a rational way. So it's something odd or unusual that happened on Friday that caused Diggs to show up to the facility saying that he had an accident at home and was experiencing concussion-like symptoms. And so they examined him and they put him in the concussion protocol and declared him out for this game. So after, given all this happened with Diggs, he didn't start a game. He missed 2 series against Green Bay for some disciplinary action that Brian Schottenheimer and the coaching staff was taking against him. In training camp, obviously, they didn't pay him a $500,000 bonus because he didn't qualify for it based on his participation at the facility with the training staff and rehabbing in the offseason that knee injury. So I asked Jerry today, is everything okay with Diggs? Like, once he clears the concussion protocol and he's healthy again, is he going to be back on the team? Is he in good standing? And Jerry said, yes, he was. And that he expected him to be back as soon as this next week in Denver.
Yeah.
And he also said, I said, is he going to get his game check today? And Jerry said, yes. So it seems like whatever concerns there are about the circumstances of this injury, it's not non-football enough that they're going to withhold his game check.
If to truly take you behind the scenes, and Jerry...
Talk about bumps.
Yeah, Jerry at some point puts his hand to his face, and there's this one area where when Jerry's getting ready to go up to his suite or whatever, and some of us, a few of us, there are only about 4 of us at that point, Jerry put his hand to his face and said something about there were no surface bumps. And so that led me to like, wait, is there something going on with his face? Like, why are you pointing? And Jerry then said, no, it's not. It's not that.
Did he get punched? Did he get hit with a frying pan?
Yeah.
Well, what happened? It's too early to fall off a ladder putting the star on top of the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly happened. And Jerry said he had not yet talked to Diggs, had not met with Diggs. He knows the explanation that Diggs gave, and he didn't seem to entirely embrace that he understood the circumstances of this.
But I think his thing, because Jerry always says, I'm comfortable with ambiguity, right? That's his big term. I think Jerry was basically saying, I don't know if I totally buy it, but it's okay. I don't have to buy it. Like as long as he can play, this is not going to be that big of a deal. And now, Ed, but it brings up one more point that you and I should add to the context of this. He has missed 22 games over the past 3 seasons, and he is one of the highest paid players on defense, if not the highest.
They invested $97 million in him last year when they signed him to a long-term deal at training camp.
Yeah.
And they even made a similar investment this offseason or just before the season started in Deron Bland. And there's been this sense that he's not happy. They have the opportunity to get out of the contract at the end of this year, that he hasn't been productive. Like you said, he's had injuries. He's missed a lot of games. There's the disciplinary issues I talked about. There's a sense that he's just not content here anymore. He lost his best friend, Micah Parsons, getting traded to Green Bay. That's affected his comfort level here. And so for a lot of reasons, there's a lot of doubt about just what kind of future he has in Dallas. But Jerry, I think, was trying to make the point that this concussion is not going to be the reason they jettison him in any way or trade him or whatever. But
it also came up in our conversations with Jerry. Somebody brought up the fact that, hey, Jerry, George Pickens does have the same agent as Micah Parsons.
David Mulligetta.
And Jerry basically said that, doesn't have anything to do with anything. And he wanted to reiterate that the agent played a very small role in what happened with the trade of Micah Parsons. And
didn't he basically say this would have been the result no matter who the agent was?
That's kind of what he was getting at.
Yeah.
I don't know if he said it exactly that clearly.
Then you asked him if he knew the agent by name yet. He didn't say yes.
He said, I'm going to leave that alone, which he rarely does. But yes, but he famously or infamously said he does not even know the name of Micah's agent. When was that, by the way, in the whole Micah thing? Was that back in March? Was that early on in the process? Okay, Cowboys improve to 3-3-1, second place in the NFC East. If the Vikings had been able to, with quarterback Carson Wentz at the helm, got it done today, Cowboys would have been right there on the heels of those those Eagles. And right now, Eagles are 5-2. They're not that far back behind, and the Cowboys played extremely well today. Anything else, Ed? I did want to say, I would say the O-line, I think the fact that they were able to run the ball as well. Actually, Jaden Blue has been running as the backup tailback with Miles Sanders out, and he's looked okay. Today, one got called back. He had a really nice run. That got
finally saw his speed on that play.
Yeah,
really the first time since he was activated to the roster.
Yeah, I would say that the O-line, still a mixed bag in the sense that some bad holding calls today.
Well, I think the offensive line is going to get challenged big time next week at Denver. They're playing at altitude in a noisy environment against the team that's the best pass rushing team in football the last 2 years. They got over 30 sacks already, which is the most they've ever had in the first 6 games of the season. I think it's It's the most anybody's had since like 2003 at this point in the year. And so that's going to be an enormous challenge for Dallas. And they've got Patrick Surtain, the former defensive player of the year, the player that one of the players the Cowboys wanted to draft, him or J.C. Horn, in the year they wound up taking Micah Parsons because Horn and Surtain went right in front of Dallas's pick that year. And so they traded back and then drafted Micah Parsons and then didn't give him the second contract and sent him to Green Bay.
Yeah. And yielded him. Jerry loves to talk about those picks. He's very excited about those picks. Injury-wise, just to get you caught up, Kenny Clark got injured, and I believe it was a knee.
No, it was an elbow.
Elbow, sorry.
Oh, he did finish. He did come back in.
Kenny Clark was back in. Anybody else?
Not of real consequence, I don't think. And obviously, they got Turpin back. They got Lamb back. They got Tyler Booker back. He had kind of a rough game. He had some penalties today. And there were some pressures inside against this defense today. Payne's a good player inside, so that wasn't terribly surprising. But the big test will be next week in Denver for this pass protection group. I thought the other thing, if I can mention one more thing, we talked about Javonte Williams going over 100 yards for the second time. CeeDee Lamb had his first career 100-yard game against Washington, which is kind of amazing. But Javonte Williams ran so effectively that the play-action passing game, remains something that Dak Prescott's really excelling at. He's got 7 touchdown passes in the play-action passing game. That's most of the NFL. He had 2 today. He's great when he gets under center and the running game becomes a factor for the defense. I think he was 7 for 9 today with 2 touchdown passes on play-action passes, giving him 7 for the league lead at this point in the season.
Yeah, and I just wanted to talk about the pass rush a little bit. They did blitz, which helped them, but Ezeraku gets his first sack. Shamar James had he's a physical player. He's not the greatest, and he messes up, but he is a physical guy, and he went in there on that strip sack, and also that's the play where they knocked Jaden Daniels out of the game. He makes a big play there. Who else had sacks?
Clowney had the recovery of the fall.
Clowney had a recovery and maybe a sack as well. He had 4 sacks, and that has not been something that
4 sacks, 2 takeaways, and a defensive touchdown. That's their old Dan Quinn, Mike McCarthy recipe for success.
Yeah,
put 40 on the board.
Good to see old Dan Quinn back in the building. Had the cap turned around backwards, and and one more word, Ed, on what you were talking about to start the show today. It was interesting to hear Jerry. Now, sometimes when Jerry goes off on something, if you've known Jerry for long enough, like we have, he's also using it to praise himself. But his passion for Schottenheimer, for Shoddy, is so much so right now. And I think one thing you kind of brought up, and then Jerry pounced on it, was just the work ethic. I think Jerry said if there were 36 hours in the day, he would work all 36. He's trying to uncover everything. So that is a way. I think Jerry is sort of patting himself on the back. But Jerry, I think most of us were trying to bring up, hey, Eberflus kind of bounced back. Good week for him. Jerry was more interested in talking about Shoddy.
Although Jerry, he did defend Eberflus from criticism during the week as well.
He did.
Multiple times, and understandably so, because criticizing Eberflus is criticizing Jerry and Steven, because as much as he was hired by Schottenheimer, he was really hired by Jerry and Steven.
Yes.
And so I'm not even sure that, he might have gotten the job after Shoddy was hired, but they were well into the interview process and had already decided that no matter who the head coach was, Eberflus was going to come back from 7 years as an assistant in Dallas under Rod Marinelli and be the defensive coordinator on the next coaching staff. And he has a vested interest in both, because the Cowboys were the only team of the 7 that, hired a new head coach to promote from within. He couldn't work it out with Mike McCarthy. That was his original goal, was to keep McCarthy and extend that. They couldn't agree on terms. And he pivoted to Schottenheimer. You remember Shoddy telling us at training camp in our interview with him that he thought he was back home in Tennessee. He thought he was going to go work for somebody else. He had other offers to call plays, and he thought he wasn't coming back to Dallas without play calling authority, and he was going to wind up somewhere else. And next thing you know, the Cowboys bring him back and interview him for 7 hours. And like he said, I got a lot of confidence that if I spend time with somebody, I can talk him into it.
Yeah. Isn't it weird to think that Mike McCarthy could? I mean, it's easy to see a scenario where he's still the coach right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would look
I
like.
think it was more than 50-50 when last season ended that Jerry was going to keep him because he didn't want to change the system on Dak. And the only way to avoid changing the system on Dak, once you do realize, hey, McCarthy's not going to take a 2-year extension after I just made him coach out the final year of his deal, which doesn't usually happen when the coach who's won a Super Bowl like McCarthy has. Jerry realized the only way I can keep the system the same is to have Schottenheimer replace him.
Football is back, and Underdog is the best place to make picks and win money all season long. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. You can play with as little as $1. Download the app today and sign up with promo code Doomsday to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code DOOMSDAY. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog, make picks, win money. Must be 18 and up, 19 and up in Alabama, Nebraska 19 and up, and in Colorado for some games, 21 and up in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and must be present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details.
Who are the best first-year coaches right now? First-time coaches. Ben Johnson has got it going.
Liam Cohen in Jacksonville. I think Ben Johnson has now won 4 in a row. So he has one more win than Shoddy, and he won their head-to-head competition.
Yeah.
Rather decisively.
Yeah, I would say so. That was a rough day.
That was the first of their 4 wins.
I just think you can't say Eberflus may have a lot more bad days this year than good days, but this was a good day for him. And the relief and the release that you saw from him throughout the game, this was sort of almost his credibility was on the line. There were a lot of people behind the scenes, public, everything that have really been showing him a lot of doubt. So for 1 week, he did make some tweaks. And again, maybe they should stick with some of this man coverage and blitzing and all of that.
Yeah, I think it's been a very contentious situation for the first 6 weeks of the season behind the scenes at the Star in the defensive meeting rooms. And, it was interesting, and I wrote a column about that this week, that when Schottenheimer came here to join McCarthy's staff, despite his offensive background, he wasn't a member of the offensive coaching staff. He was brought in as an analyst, and his primary assignment was to work with Dan Quinn, who was the defensive coordinator, to give an opposing offensive coach's perspective and point of view. Like, okay, here's Dan Quinn's game plan. If you were playing us this week, how would you attack us? How would you attack us if you had Jaden Daniels and this group of receivers? How would you attack us? So that they had a better sense of that. And that was his role. So he spent almost his entire first year in the defensive meeting rooms, helping the defense prepare. And there he was this week, back in that very circumstance all over again, trying to help Matt Eberflus. And Eberflus said, the solution's in the room. Like, it's not outside the organization. It's not outside our locker room. It's not outside this group of coaches. The solution's in the room. It's got to be a we solution, he said. And I think that he welcomed Schottenheimer's point of view.
Yeah. All right. We were reminded today, I'll say it again, this is not a great division. We thought it might have been because these two teams ended up in the NFC title game last year. And
Washington's only lost twice in the last year and a half. So, if the Eagles have only lost, the defending Super Bowl champs have only lost twice or 3 times in the last year and a half. So let's not overreact to where they are. They might still be a pretty dominant team.
Yeah, but they had lost 2 straight,
Mhm.
and even before that, the receivers were unhappy. The
Right.
quarterback wasn't playing that great,
Right.
so they have not been on it. Now, in the AFC, it looks like the Chiefs have figured things out, and they're back to being the Chiefs.
Indianapolis is 6-1. So
I don't know why I just can't embrace that.
they're in top division too. So they've got a big advantage to be only 6-win team in the AFC, and they play in what's perceived to be the softest division in the conference.
And Danny Dimes had a pretty funny line today. Did you see?
No, I don't think I saw it.
Yeah. Somebody was like, no, people doubted y'all. He was like, well, that was just you. Y'all didn't know anything. It was a good, he's not
Just a
usually
bit
like
more
that.
media.
Yeah. He was like, well, you guys were totally off. It is the Doomsday podcast, and we appreciate the Nation family for providing this great suite where we do the show. Rogue Media Network, the Z-Man, who's been battling illness. Ed, you didn't even know that, but he has, and he's just fought right through it. And the Doomsday, it never sleeps. And so all the platforms will be up there, and then we'll react, of course, to the Denver game next week. That's another 3:00 game, right? 3:25. Is that a game of the week situation?
And we have to talk about that because I'm going to be at that game. I'm going, but not for WFAA, although I'm going to do my usual work. I'm going to do the Doomsday podcast, but I'm going primarily to take little Henry to his first NFL game. They live in Colorado. He's a Cowboys fan, and he's already asked me, how much of my Cowboy stuff can I wear to a Denver home game?
Yeah. Yeah, this is Ed's grandson,
10-year-old
by the way. Yeah.
So I'm going to take him to the game. So
yeah, y'all be careful because I know you'll get good seats because you know people, but still going into, I mean, there's some pretty crazy fans in Denver. Maybe they'll recognize you and be okay with it, but you're not going to be in Cowboys gear, obviously, but your grandson will be.
I'll be in neutral.
So you may have to protect him because some of these NFL places, even kids aren't safe.
I go into Philly, so it's not like that.
It's not going to Philly. All right. We've had a good time with you this evening, and we will see you next Sunday evening for the Doomsday podcast for Z, for Rogue Media Network, and the great Ed Werder. I am Matt Mosley. We'll see you next Sunday.
We are Rogue Media Sports.